I bought and sold over $100 million in online companies, and I'm going to condense the most important lessons into this one video. Because trust me, I've seen the same mistakes destroy deals over and over again. Today, you'll learn exactly what to look for when buying companies, how to structure deals to protect your downside, and why most business owners fail within the first 6 months, plus how to avoid that nightmare scenario. Number one, marketing is everything. I'm sure you've heard the mantra known in real estate that goes location, location, location. It's all about location in real estate. Well, for digital businesses, I like to tell my clients that it's all about the marketing, marketing, marketing. When you're looking to buy an online company, there is no drive-by traffic. There's no foot pedestrian traffic. You want to make sure that there is a great source of marketing, either in-house or run by an agency. So when you're looking for a company to buy, make sure there's a very capable in-house marketing team, or that they have an outside agency running marketing for the company, and that agency has been with the company for at least 6 months. So they know what works, they know what hasn't, and they're very adept at running marketing for that company. And here's a key insight. The company that can pay the most to acquire customers on those advertising marketplaces has a competitive advantage to outbid the competition and win sales. Operate as is for 4 to 6 months before making any changes. The last thing you want to do is come into a perfectly oiled machine and start tinkering with the parts, right? So this owner has experimented with marketing. They have hired and fired employees. They have a whole system in place. That's the best part about buying a company. Everything already works for you. It's already making money. So don't come in and start changing things unless you're very experienced in running online companies. I have a note here. Remember, the seller strategies are proven. Learn from them first before experimenting. And then when you think it's time to start making changes in the company, only make one change at a time. You want to minimize your variables so you know what change is having what effect in the company. So remember, avoid the temptation to immediately try to improve the business. I've seen companies acquired and the new buyer calls me 6 months later and says, hey, I bought this company. It was making a lot of money. I changed the landing page, the website, I changed the marketing agency, whatever it is. And all of a sudden now the company's making half the money that it did when I bought it. Well, it's because you went in and started making changes without fully understanding the company's history and dynamics and having the expertise in marketing. Next is prioritize revenue diversity and stability over pure growth. So focus on businesses with proven stability rather than just huge growth potential. You want to look for companies that have multiple revenue streams versus a single source dependency, right? If you're buying, let's say, a Shopify company, an e-commerce company that's run on Shopify, I would prefer to buy a company that has maybe 15 or 20% of the sales coming from Amazon, 50% of the sales coming from Shopify. Maybe there's a couple of wholesale customers. So you have some diversity from where that revenue is coming in. So if something happens to Shopify, then you still have some other revenue sources. Or if something happens to Amazon, you still have other good revenue sources while you try to fix the issues over there. The second thing is look for 5 years of profitable operations. The longer and more stable the company's been operating, the more potential and probability it has to continue those operations profitably into the future, right? That's the whole basis of valuation, is trying to determine what the profits will be into the future. And then multiple products and services versus one product companies. This is similar to the multiple revenue streams versus single source, right? You want to make sure that you have your revenue coming from more than just one product. What happens if that product isn't able to be made anymore, or goes out of fashion, or maybe it's an Amazon company and a competitor comes in and steals a lot of your business and revenue? So I would prefer to have a nice selection of products or services instead of relying on just one of those in most cases. Right. And a good example of that is Dyson vacuum cleaners, right? They just started with a vacuum cleaner, but if you look at Dyson now, they spend a lot of R&D and time building fans and air purifiers and vacuum cleaners and all these other things. They're even into farming now, I believe. So after you have a great product or great service, expand the lineup and grow horizontally. The next thing to look at is financial due diligence. You have to verify every claim when you're investigating the company's financials, right? It's not just about, looking for risks in the company, but you also want to keep in mind to uncover growth opportunities. So when you're looking at let's say the profit and loss statement, looking at how much money the company did in sales, what their expenses were, what their profits were, you want to cross-reference those revenue claims against maybe e-commerce reporting or maybe deposits in their bank account, and make sure that what they're claiming on their profit and loss is actually the same as what maybe the WordPress WooCommerce, shopping cart claimed in sales, or that match the amount they're depositing into their bank statements every month or every quarter. When you get to due diligence after you present an offer and you guys agreed upon a purchase price for the company, due diligence is really your opportunity to make sure what the company is what the seller claims it is, right? So jump in deep, take some time and investigate every aspect and look for opportunities. You want to assess working capital requirements. Right? That includes any debt obligations the company may have. One thing that I see sometimes is buyers come in and they look at a digital company. And in digital companies, there aren't a ton of physical expenses. There's no real estate and not a lot of US-based employees and things like that. But there usually are pretty significant marketing expenses. So maybe a company doing $10 million a year in revenue has a few $100,000 every month in marketing spend, right? So when you're looking to acquire a company like that, you want to make sure that you have the cash flow or available lending funds to pay for that $200,000 or $300,000 in Facebook ads or Google ads or some combination of that every single month. And if you don't, that may not be a business for you, or you may need to negotiate some of that working capital into the deal. Go ahead and verify digital asset ownership. You want to make sure that the owner actually owns the assets they're claiming they own. Check for platform dependencies. Does the company rely on the Amazon platform? Does it rely on the Facebook ads platform? Does it rely on Google ads platform? Any dependency can uncover risk for the business, right? If you see any aspect of the business relying on one single source of anything, that could be a vendor or revenue or marketing, things like that, those could be potential red flags. And you want to evaluate that scenario. And if you do move forward with that business, I recommend diversifying whatever that single source is in whatever category that is. By the way, I built a comprehensive due diligence spreadsheet for you to use. If you just look in the description, there'll be a link down there. You can click that link. It's a nice Google sheet. There's an entire universe of due diligence questions for every category you want to investigate. You can then just copy and paste those into a separate tab and build out a due diligence worksheet that's specific to the business you're looking to acquire. Seller financing creates aligned incentives. So this is an important part of buying companies, right? There's not a lot of assets in the world you can buy that can factor seller financing into the deal. Certainly, typically not stocks or buying cars or watches or all this other stuff, but you do see it sometimes in real estate, and you definitely see it when buying companies. So as a buyer, you should always try to negotiate some amount of seller financing into the deal. It creates a very powerful alignment between you and the seller. So you have aligned incentives, right? Sellers ensure smoother transitions when their payout depends upon your success. If the company isn't successful, you're not going to have the funds to pay them that seller note. They're more invested in your success. There's reduced misrepresentation risk during due diligence, since they still are owed money, right? They're not going to misrepresent. They're not going to hide things from you, because they know after you close that you still owe them $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever that amount is. And they want to make sure they're getting paid that second chunk of money. It also provides you leverage for any issues that you may encounter during the deal. Post-close, so you buy the company and then maybe the seller isn't providing you with the necessary training they agreed to. Well, now you have a seller note, some chunk of money that you can hold over their head to make sure that they fulfill the obligations that they promised to you. And then it also just demonstrates confidence, right? It's nice to see somebody selling a company that has enough confidence in the future performance of the business to be able to fund some of that acquisition for you. Make sure that you just, structure some seller note if you can. Include clear terms for the amount, the interest rate, the start and finish date, and things like that. All right, the next item here is plan your exit strategy from day one. Your goal when buying a company is to increase the value of the company, provide cash flow to you and or your family, and then position the business for a future sale if that's what you want to do. You don't want to hand it down to your kids or something like that. So create an exit planning checklist. Set a timeline for when you want to sell the company. That way there's a deadline and you have some finish line to stay focused on. You want to focus on profitability and growth metrics that buyers value, like average order value and customer lifetime value and churn and all these other things that we'll talk about in later videos. We want to maintain professional financial records and operations, right? Have a bookkeeper. Bookkeepers are probably the smallest expense for an online business, but it's the last person digital company owners tend to hire because nobody enjoys bookkeeping. It's just the last thing on your mind typically. But spend $500 a month or $1,000 a month and have your bookkeeping done every single month, neat and tidy. When you go to sell the company, you have very clean and professionalized financials. If you want to sell your company for a professional price, you have to have professional financials. Last is build systems that don't depend on you personally. Just like when you're going to buy the company, you don't want to buy a job. So as you take over this company and you build the company and grow it, make sure you're not being dragged into a full-time employee position. Hire people who have at least as high a skill set as you do in that particular part of the job. Hire the best people you can and let them go and do what they do best and build the company under your guidance and advice. Thinking about an exit from the beginning helps you make better operational decisions. In the end, it will definitely help you drive value. And the last thing I want to talk about is that it's important to just get started, right? Perfect is the enemy of good. The more important thing than finding the perfect deal, than negotiating the absolute best price, is just getting out there and buying a good business. Because while you're waiting a year or 2 years to find that good business at a 3 multiple or that perfect business at a 3.2 multiple, somebody else bought that last business you saw and they've been making 12 months of profits while you're just standing, on the sidelines watching everybody else get experience and grow companies and be successful entrepreneurs. So there is no perfect business. Find a business that is a good business, that's a good and fair price, and jump in and just get in the game. You're not married to the business. You're not making an oath or promise to God or to whoever you believe in to stay with this business for your entire life. If you don't enjoy it, you don't like entrepreneurship, you can just go and sell the company in a year or 2 or 3 years later. Like I said, waiting costs profits. 12 months delayed is 12 months of lost cash flow and learning. ROI timing matters less than just getting in and doing it. And analysis paralysis kills deals. I've seen buyers come to me and say, hey, I want to buy a company. I get emails from them a year, 18 months later, they're still looking for that company. So again, I'm kind of hammering this point home, but it's just get in there and start making money, start buying companies, start getting the experience, hire the teams, learn marketing, learn online business skills. And you will be light years ahead of anybody else who's just waiting for that perfect business, that someday I'll, scenario. They live on someday I'll buy a business. Someday I'll be an entrepreneur. Someday I'll be rich. But that just isn't how it actually happens in the real world. All right. So that's 7 things I've learned from buying over $100 million in digital companies. Stay tuned to see my next video. You can probably click here in the screen about how my client bought a $5 million business with $200,000 down and made a lot of money in the meantime. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.